Nobody saw it coming. What started as a lighthearted interview on Jenna and Friends with country music superstar Carrie Underwood turned into one of the most shocking on-air clashes the show has ever seen. It was supposed to be a friendly chat, new music, life on the road, family. But when host Jenna pressed Carrie about her views on staying authentic in a music industry that's increasingly commercialized, the air shifted. What followed wasn't just a debate. It was raw, personal, and deeply emotional. Carrie pushed back with her trademark grace until the questions cut too deep. The exchange spiraled, the tension mounted, and in the final moments, Carrie Underwood did something almost unthinkable. She stood up, walked off the set, and left the audience gasping. This wasn't just an argument about music. It became a battle over identity, integrity, and what it means to stand firm in who you are, even when the spotlight turns harsh. The Jenna and Friends set gleamed under warm studio lights, its pastel palette giving the illusion of comfort and friendliness. Carrie Underwood, dressed in a cream-colored blouse with her signature golden hair falling in soft waves, smiled politely as the audience applauded her entrance. Jenna rose from her seat, her trademark enthusiasm on full display, and greeted her guest with a hug. "Carrie Underwood, ladies and gentlemen," Jenna beamed, her voice brimming with excitement. "We are so thrilled to have you here today. You're one of the biggest names in country music. A mom, a powerhouse. You do it all. How are you balancing everything these days?" Carrie leaned forward slightly, offering the kind of composed smile that had become second nature after years of interviews. "Thank you, Jenna. It's been a blessing, honestly. I love what I do, and I love my family, so it's about making sure the balance feels right. Some days are chaos, but it's a beautiful kind of chaos." The audience chuckled warmly. Jenna nodded, but quickly pivoted, her expression sharpening. "And speaking of balance, how do you balance authenticity with the pressures of, well, let's just say it, the music industry machine? You know, critics sometimes say country artists, even big stars, end up compromising." Carrie's smile faltered just slightly, almost imperceptibly. She adjusted her posture, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "I think for me, it's always been about staying true to who I am. You can't control what people say, but you can control what you put out there. My music, my values, my connection to fans, that's what guides me." The room felt a subtle shift. It wasn't hostile, not yet, but the air carried a note of unease. Jenna pressed again, her tone laced with a probing curiosity that edged toward challenge. "But isn't that a little idealistic, Carrie? I mean, the industry is built on trends, on image, on, let's be honest, what sells. And you've had, what, 2 decades at the top? Surely you've had to play the game a little." Carrie's eyes flickered. The steel beneath her southern grace momentarily flashed. She chuckled lightly, though the sound was thin. "I think anyone in this business has to be aware of how things work, but there's a difference between awareness and compromise. I've never been interested in being anyone other than myself." The audience applauded, but the claps carried a nervous energy. Some exchanged looks, sensing the undertone beneath the polite back and forth. Jenna leaned back in her chair, studying Carrie with a half-smile. "So you're saying you've never bent, never sacrificed, never softened who you are for the sake of your career?" Carrie's hands tightened slightly in her lap. Her voice remained calm, but her words were deliberate now, edged with conviction. "I'm saying that I know who I am, Jenna. And if that means sometimes walking a harder road, then so be it. I'd rather walk that road than lose myself." There it was, the first spark of tension, barely masked beneath pleasantries. The audience, picking up on the shift, quieted. The warmth of the opening had cooled into something else, the beginning of a storm that no one in the studio, or watching at home, quite expected. Carrie still smiled, Jenna still laughed lightly, but beneath the surface, the collision course had been set. Jenna shifted in her seat, her smile bright but edged with curiosity that was starting to cut deeper. The studio audience leaned forward, sensing something brewing. "You know, Carrie," Jenna began, her tone just a shade sharper, "a lot of artists, especially in country music, like to lean on this word authenticity. But I think the public deserves a little honesty here. Authentic doesn't always mean real. It can mean polished, packaged, even market tested." A murmur rippled through the audience. Jenna's phrasing landed like a challenge. Carrie inhaled slowly, pressing her hands together on her lap before answering. "I can only speak for myself. I don't sing songs because they're market tested. I sing them because they mean something to me, and I hope they mean something to others. That's what music should be about, connection, not marketing." "But come on," Jenna interrupted lightly, leaning forward, her voice carrying the cadence of someone about to score a point. "You're one of the most commercially successful country artists in history. You're telling us none of your decisions were ever influenced by keeping that success going?" Carrie's smile thinned. Her eyes locked on Jenna, and for the first time that morning, her southern gentleness gave way to something more steely. Success and integrity don't have to cancel each other out. You can have both if you're careful about what you say yes to and what you say no to. The audience clapped, but this time the applause wasn't merely supportive. It was defensive, as if they wanted to shield Carrie from the insinuation. Jenna didn't flinch. "You make it sound simple, but is it really? I mean, you've been in glossy endorsements, in high-budget productions. People see those and wonder, where does Carrie the artist end and Carrie the brand begin?" Carrie blinked, her composure firm. She let the silence hang a moment before responding. "I'm proud of the work I've done. I don't see shame in being successful. If people want to call that being a brand, fine. But that brand is still me. No one's writing my songs for me. No one's deciding who I am when I step on a stage." The audience roared with applause, and Jenna, caught slightly off guard, let out a short laugh to cut the tension. Still, she pressed again. "But isn't that the point, Carrie? The industry is designed to make stars believe they're in control when in reality, they're part of a system. Fans look at someone like you and wonder, can we really trust what we're seeing? Or is it all carefully constructed?" Carrie leaned forward now, her voice soft but cutting. "You know, Jenna, I think people can feel when something is genuine. You can fool them for a song or two, maybe for a year, but you can't fool them for 20 years. I've been blessed with fans who stick by me because they know what I'm singing comes from the heart, and that's not something a system can manufacture." The audience erupted in cheers, many standing to clap. Jenna forced a laugh, but her grip on the moment seemed less certain. The tension was no longer subtle, it was visible, pulsing in the air. Carrie wasn't just answering questions, she was defending her very identity. And the audience loved every second. What started as polite curiosity was now fully charged confrontation, and the collision course was set. The smiles were thinner, the voices sharper, and the stakes higher. This wasn't just banter anymore. It was a battle of truth versus perception, and neither woman seemed ready to yield. By now, the air in the studio felt electric, charged, almost unstable. The smiles on both women's faces had grown tighter, thinner,
more like masks than genuine warmth. The audience sensed it. They weren't just watching an interview anymore. They were witnessing a collision. Jenna leaned forward, her voice carrying an edge that no longer tried to hide behind charm. Carrie, I think what people struggle with is this. When stars keep saying they're real, but then their lives look nothing like the rest of us. Private jets, luxury tours, massive mansions. Is it credible to call that authentic? The question hit like a challenge flung across the stage. The crowd groaned, some even booing Janet lightly. Carrie, however, didn't immediately respond. She let the noise ripple, her eyes fixed on Jenna, steady and unblinking. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than before, but far more dangerous. "You know, Jenna, it's interesting," Carrie began, her tone measured but cutting, "that you think you get to decide who's authentic and who isn't. You sit in this chair day after day, asking people to bare themselves for your entertainment, and yet you question whether someone else's journey is real." The audience gasped. That was the first time Carrie had turned the spotlight back on Jenna herself. Jenna's smile flickered, faltering for the first time. "I'm just asking questions, Carrie. It's my job to represent what viewers are already thinking." Carrie shook her head, her blonde hair brushing her shoulders. "No, what you're doing is planting doubt. You're implying that success and sincerity can't live in the same person. And maybe that makes for good TV, but it's not the truth." Applause burst through the studio. Jenna, sensing her authority slipping, tried to retake control. "Don't you think it's fair, though," Jenna pressed, her voice tightening, "that people wonder if the Carrie Underwood they see on stage is different from the Carrie Underwood sitting here today? Because a lot of artists, big artists, get lost in the image. Fans get burned. Their trust gets broken." Carrie's jaw clenched, and for the first time, her voice carried a crack of emotion, raw, sharp, unfiltered. "You're right about one thing. Fans get burned. They've been lied to by people in this industry. They've been sold illusions. And maybe that's why they come to me, because they know I won't do that to them." The audience erupted, chanting her name again. Carrie didn't break eye contact with Jenna. "Do you know what it feels like," she continued, her voice rising, "to stand on a stage in front of tens of thousands of people, look into their eyes, and know that your words are helping them through the worst nights of their lives? That's not a product. That's not a brand. That's humanity. And to reduce it to a marketing ploy, that's not just insulting to me, it's insulting to them." The audience was on its feet, clapping thunderously. Jenna, sensing her authority slipping, tried to retake control. "But Carrie, don't you think it's fair, though," Jenna pressed, her voice tightening, "that people wonder if the Carrie Underwood they see on stage is different from the Carrie Underwood sitting here today? Because a lot of artists, big artists, get lost in the image. Fans get burned. Their trust gets broken." Carrie's jaw clenched, and for the first time, her voice carried a crack of emotion, raw, sharp, unfiltered. "You're right about one thing. Fans get burned. They've been lied to by people in this industry. They've been sold illusions. And maybe that's why they come to me, because they know I won't do that to them." The audience erupted, chanting her name again. Carrie didn't break eye contact with Jenna. "Do you know what it feels like," she continued, her voice rising, "to stand on a stage in front of tens of thousands of people, look into their eyes, and know that your words are helping them through the worst nights of their lives? That's not a product. That's not a brand. That's humanity. And to reduce it to a marketing ploy, that's not just insulting to me, it's insulting to them." The audience was on its feet, clapping thunderously. Jenna, sensing her authority slipping, tried to retake control. But Carrie, don't you think it's fair that people wonder if the Carrie Underwood they see on stage is different from the Carrie Underwood sitting here today? Because a lot of artists, big artists, get lost in the image. Fans get burned. Their trust gets broken. Carrie's eyes flashed. No, I'm not just like everyone else. I have blessings most people don't. But what you don't seem to understand, Jenna, is that those blessings don't erase my roots. They don't erase my values. And they sure don't erase the responsibility I feel toward the people who put me here. She leaned forward, her voice fierce now, trembling with conviction. Credibility isn't about living in a farmhouse versus a mansion. It's about whether people can believe you mean what you say. And I have never once stood on a stage and sung words I didn't believe with all my heart. The studio thundered in applause. Some in the audience were openly cheering, others nodding through tears. Jenna's eyes narrowed slightly, realizing she had lost control of the narrative. Still, she pressed again, perhaps out of instinct, perhaps out of ego. But Carrie, isn't it possible that you believe you're authentic while being blind to the ways fame shapes you? Maybe credibility isn't just about intentions, it's about perception. And perception, Carrie, can't always be controlled. For a moment, the two women simply stared at one another, neither blinking, neither retreating. The silence was heavy, crackling. Carrie broke it, her voice low, resonant, every word sharp as glass. Perception is fleeting. Truth lasts. And the truth is, Jenna, I don't need you or anyone else to validate my credibility. My fans have already done that for me, over and over again, for 20 years. That's a trust I will never break. And if you can't see that, maybe you're not asking the right questions. The crowd erupted in deafening cheers, chanting Carrie's name. Jenna sat back, visibly rattled, her rehearsed poise faltering under the weight of Carrie's words. The polite dance was gone. The masks had dropped, and in its place stood something raw, personal, and combustible. Carrie Underwood wasn't just defending her career anymore. She was defending her soul, and everyone watching knew the real clash had only just begun. The studio, already buzzing from Carrie's fierce defense, now felt like a tinderbox waiting for the final spark. Jenna's carefully constructed hostess composure was unraveling. Her smile, once broad and confident, had become thin and brittle. She leaned forward again, determined to regain control of the narrative. "Carrie, I hear your passion," Jenna said, her tone clipped but trying to project calm. "But passion doesn't erase the fact that fame changes people. And if you can't admit that, then maybe your credibility isn't as unshakable as you think." The words landed like a slap. A murmur of disapproval rolled through the audience, but Jenna pressed on, sensing this was her last chance to reframe the conversation. Fans want honesty, and honesty would be admitting that maybe, just maybe, the Carrie they see today isn't the same woman they first rooted for on that stage all those years ago. The audience booed audibly now, some shouting, "Too far!" But Carrie didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still, her eyes locked on Jenna, her knuckles tightening on the arms of her chair. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice steady but vibrating with raw emotion, she answered, "You want honesty, Jenna? Fine. Here's honesty. I've worked my whole life to stay true to who I am. I fought against every pressure this industry tried to put on me. I turned down offers, I walked away from deals, I lost friends, because I refused to compromise who I am and what I stand for. And now, after everything, to sit here and have you look me in the eye and suggest my fans don't know me, that they've been following a mirage, that's not just insulting, that's cruel." The audience erupted,
Cheers, claps, even shouts of support. Someone in the front row yelled, "We love you, Carrie," and the whole crowd echoed it. Jenna forced a smile, though it was cracking under the weight of the moment. "Carrie, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to ask the questions people are thinking." Carrie leaned forward now, her own mask of restraint slipping. Her voice cut sharp, clear, and unwavering. "No, Jenna. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations dressed up as questions. And there's a big difference. You don't want the truth. You want the soundbite. You want the clip that will trend online." The audience exploded in applause again. Jenna shifted in her seat, visibly shaken. But instead of pulling back, she made the fatal mistake of doubling down. "Carrie, if you can't handle tough questions, maybe this isn't the right place for you." The entire room gasped. It was the moment everything shifted. Carrie's eyes widened, her face tightening, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with finality. Slowly, deliberately, she stood. The scrape of her chair against the studio floor echoed like a thunderclap. The audience immediately erupted. Cheers, shouts, the swell of voices rising in support. Jenna blinked rapidly, her hand tightening on her cue cards, as if willing the moment to reverse itself. Carrie remained standing, towering now with a presence that filled the room. She looked down at Jenna, her voice low but searing, every syllable resonating with finality. "I've worked my whole life to stay true to who I am. I fought against every pressure this industry tried to put on me. I turned down offers. I walked away from deals. I lost friends because I refused to compromise who I am and what I stand for. And now, after everything, to sit here and have you look me in the eye and suggest my fans don't know me, that they've been following a mirage, that's not just insulting, that's cruel." The audience roared, many on their feet. Carrie's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer force of her emotion. She turned toward the audience, her voice rising above the noise. "To everyone here and to everyone watching, I love you, I see you, and I will always sing for you. Never doubt that." The studio erupted in thunderous applause, chants of "Carrie, Carrie, Carrie," shaking the rafters. Jenna, pale and silent now, sat frozen in her chair. Without another word, Carrie lifted her chin, turned, and began walking toward the edge of the set. Cameras scrambled to follow her as she strode confidently off stage, the sound of cheering fans echoing behind her. The last image audiences saw was Carrie disappearing behind the curtains, head high, dignity intact, while Jenna sat at her desk, visibly shaken, clutching her cue cards like a lifeline. The clash was over, and in the eyes of millions watching at home, there was no question who had won. Carrie Underwood had walked off not in defeat, but in absolute triumph. The cameras lingered on the empty chair where Carrie Underwood had been sitting just moments before, the applause from the audience still rattling the studio walls. Jenna tried to move on, fumbling with her cue cards, but the energy in the room had already shifted beyond her control. What began as a routine interview had transformed into one of the most talked about clashes in daytime television history. Carrie Underwood's walk-off wasn't just a dramatic moment. It was a statement. It was about more than music, more than fame, more than celebrity interviews gone wrong. At its core, it was about credibility and trust. Carrie had spent nearly 2 decades building a bond with her fans, rooted in authenticity and shared values. And when Jenna poked at that bond, suggesting it was a facade, Carrie didn't just defend herself, she defended the millions who had walked beside her on her journey. The studio audience recognized it instantly. Their cheers, their chants of "Carrie, Carrie," weren't just applause for a celebrity. They were a vote of confidence, a public declaration that they believed in her. The moment Carrie turned to them and said, "I love you, I see you, and I will always sing for you," it sealed her victory. She didn't need the rest of the interview. She didn't need Jenna's approval. She had something far stronger, the trust of her people. Meanwhile, Jenna was left sitting in silence, her attempt to push boundaries backfiring spectacularly. What she thought would be a hard-hitting moment of journalism had instead exposed a deeper truth. Credibility isn't gained by tearing others down. It's earned by listening, by respecting, and by knowing when you've crossed the line. Within hours, clips of Carrie's walk-off were everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Fans hailed it as one of the most powerful TV moments of the decade. Hashtags like Carrie Walks Tall and We Stand with Carrie trended worldwide. Comment sections overflowed with praise for Carrie's poise and condemnation of Jenna's tactics. But beyond the viral buzz, the moment left audiences asking bigger questions. What does it mean to stay true to yourself when the world is constantly trying to reshape you? How much does credibility matter in leadership, in artistry, in public life? And what happens when someone finally says enough? Carrie Underwood answered those questions not with a rehearsed statement, but with action. She walked away, head held high, proving that sometimes the loudest thing you can say is said in silence. And as millions of viewers replayed that final image of Carrie disappearing behind the curtains, one thing was clear. She hadn't walked off in anger. She had walked off in triumphs. If you loved this unforgettable moment, make sure to subscribe for more celebrity clashes, emotional showdowns, and powerful on-air confrontations. And tell us in the comments, did Carrie make the right choice by walking off, or should she have stayed to fight it out?